The small town of St. Harlow had always treated its church like a spine. Everything straightened itself around it. Sunday bells, faded murals, the cracked stone steps where children posed for First Communion photos. To the townsfolk, it was the one place still untouched by time. That illusion shattered on a gray autumn afternoon, when a K-9 named Rook began clawing furiously at the ground behind the rectory. His handler thought he was chasing a squirrel. Instead, he was digging into a secret the church had buried for 35 years, one bound in silence, faith, and the disappearance of 2 young nuns. Rain clung to the air without falling, the kind of sky that felt bruised. Deputy Mark Teller tightened the leash on Rook, the German shepherd pulling hard toward the fence that divided the rectory from the cemetery. The old church loomed to the left, its stained glass dull without the sun. "Easy, boy," Teller muttered, his boots sucking against the wet soil. Rook wasn't listening. His chest heaved, paws driving into the earth. Then, with sudden desperation, he started digging. "Damn it!" Teller sighed. He looked around. No one in sight. Just a church tower and rows of stones slanting with age. The dog's claws scraped against something solid beneath the dirt. A hollow wooden clack. Teller's throat tightened. He crouched, brushed soil away with his hands. What emerged wasn't a coffin, too small, but a wooden chest, old, swollen with moisture. He froze. The last time this dog had dug with that kind of urgency, they'd found a child's shoe wedged in the reeds near Coldwater Creek. The boy had been missing 3 days. "Rook," Teller whispered. The shepherd whimpered softly, then pressed his nose against the chest. With a grunt, Teller pulled it free. The lock was rusted, but the wood had split from years underground. He wedged it open with his pocket knife. Inside lay 2 weather habits, black and white cloth, folded neatly. Beneath them, bound in twine, was a stack of letters. The rain started then, light, deliberate, as though the sky approved of what had been unearthed. Father Brennan lit his 3rd cigarette of the evening on the rectory porch, fingers trembling despite the nicotine. He had seen the deputy arrive but hadn't gone out. People had been whispering about cracks in the cemetery ground. God testing them, they said. When Teller appeared with the chest, Brennan's blood cooled. "Evening, Father," Teller said. The priest nodded once, cigarette glowing. "And what do you have there?" Rook found it, buried right up against your fence. Brennan inhaled, held it, let the smoke escape slowly. His silence stretched too long. "You recognize it?" Teller pressed. The priest's jaw ticked. No. Teller didn't believe him. He lifted the cloth from the chest, let the rain dampen its edges. "These belong to nuns. You're telling me you don't know whose?" Brennan dropped his cigarette into the gravel. "Things get left behind. 30 years of priests before me. I can't account for every. These aren't just things," Teller cut in. His voice was low but tight, the way it always got when it got told him something was wrong. "These belonged to Sister Catherine and Sister Margaret. They disappeared in '89. My mother still prays for them every week." Brennan's lips pressed into a line. For a moment, Teller thought the priest might confess to something, anything. Instead, Brennan stepped back into shadow. "You'll take that to the sheriff," Brennan said. "That's the proper course." Teller swallowed. He felt Rook stiffen beside him, ears pinned. Something inside Brennan's expression, guilt maybe or fear, made the rain colder. The sheriff's office smelled like coffee left too long on the burner. Sheriff Grant Ellery leaned back in his chair, arms crossed as Teller set the chest down on the desk. "You're telling me the dog dug this up behind St. Harlow's?" "Yes, sir." Ellery thumbed the letters, brittle with time. "You didn't read them?" Teller shook his head. "Didn't think it was my place." "Christ, Mark, when you bring me a box like this, it's already your place." Ellery untied the twine, spread the letters on the desk. The ink had bled in places, but the handwriting was sharp, urgent. The first began, "We were told not to write, but silence feels heavier than sin. If something happens to us, may God forgive those who kept us quiet." The sheriff's brow furrowed. He read another, then another. By the 3rd, his hand trembled slightly. "They knew," he whispered. "Knew what?" Teller asked. Ellery looked up. His face had gone pale, the weight of something Teller couldn't see pressing down. "That's not for us to talk about yet." "With respect, Sheriff." I said, "Not yet." Ellery's voice cracked like a whip. Then he softened, leaned back in his chair. "You did right bringing it here. Leave it with me." Teller hesitated. Rook shifted restlessly at his side. "Sir, with all due respect, I don't think we should keep this quiet. Half this town still prays for those nuns. My mother—" Ellery slammed his hand on the desk, rattling the letters. "Enough." The room fell silent, except for the rain ticking against the window. Something had been stirred, and Teller knew it wouldn't settle easy. That night, Teller sat in his truck outside his mother's house, engine off. The town was dark except for porch lights and the faint glow of the church tower. He thought about the letters, about the habits folded neatly, like someone had meant to preserve them. A tap on the window startled him. His mother, Elaine Teller, peered in, wrapped in her robe. "Mark, you gonna sit out here all night?" He rolled the window down. "Just thinking." She studied him, eyes sharp despite her years. "You've got that look. Same one your father had, when he knew something he wasn't supposed to." Mark almost told her, almost let it spill. But Ellery's voice echoed in his head. "Not yet." Instead, he said, "It's nothing. Just work." Elaine gave a small, knowing smile. Work's never nothing in this town. The next morning, Teller walked Rook past the church again. The ground where the chest had been was smoothed over, damp with fresh soil. He paused, staring at it, a weight pressing down his chest. The door creaked behind him. Father Brennan stepped out, his black coat buttoned tight. "You're back," Brennan said. "Routine patrol," Teller replied. The priest studied him. "Be careful, deputy. Some things are buried for a reason." Teller narrowed his eyes. "And some things don't stay buried, no matter how deep you put them." Brennan's mouth curved into something between a smile and a warning. As the bells tolled above them, the sound was less holy hymn than heavy verdict. That evening, someone broke into Teller's truck. Nothing was stolen, but the glove compartment was open, paper scattered. A single folded note lay on the driver's seat. It read, "Stop digging or Rook will be next." Teller gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles whitened. Rook, sleeping peacefully in the back seat, twitched his ears, oblivious. Outside, the church bells rang again, 3 solemn tolls that echoed through the empty streets of St. Harlow. For the first time in years, Mark Teller wished he didn't believe in ghosts. The sheriff's office lights burned late into the night, but no one saw Ellery leave with the chest. He carried it under his arm like contraband, slipping into the back door of St. Harlow's rectory. The rain had stopped, leaving the street slick and the night too quiet. Deputy Teller only learned of this from Janet Rourke, the night clerk at the gas station across the road. She'd spotted Ellery moving fast, head down, like a man trying to outpace his conscience. By dawn, whispers had already reached the diner. The sheriff's hiding something. The church is in on it. Mark Teller didn't like rumors, but he trusted Janet's eyes. He took his coffee black, staring out the diner window at the tower cross, dark against the pale sky. Janet slid into the booth across from him without asking. "You hear the bells at 3 a.m? "No." They rang 3 times. "I swear it wasn't the wind. I know what I heard." Mark rubbed his forehead. "You think the church is sending signals now?" She leaned closer. "I think something's coming loose. And the sheriff's patching it back in secret." Before Mark could answer, Rook growled low under the table. A shadow fell across the booth. Father Brennan. "Deputy," Brennan said, voice even. "Miss Rourke, you should both be careful about filling the air with suspicions. This town has long memories." Janet bristled. "Or long secrets." Brennan's eyes flashed, just for a second, before his calm returned. "Be careful what you chase. Not all dogs come back when called." He left without ordering coffee. The silence he left behind felt heavier than any sermon. Mark drove straight to the sheriff's office. Ellery was there, hunched over paperwork. "You took the chest," Mark said flatly. Ellery looked up, eyes red-rimmed. "Careful how you talk, son. I'm not your son." Mark's jaw was tight. You said you'd keep it here. Instead, you snuck it into the rectory. Ellery sighed, leaned back. And where else should it go? You think we store something like that next to the evidence fridge? Half this county will be lined up outside. So you hand it back to the church? Ellery's stare hardened. You don't know what you're poking at. Those letters, they're not just about missing nuns. They're about the kind of things that can split a town down the middle, tear families apart. Things that don't heal. Mark's fists clenched. Then maybe they should tear. Maybe they should bleed. Maybe people should finally know. Ellery stood, voice sharp. Sit down, tell her. Mark didn't. He turned, slammed the door behind him. The letters haunted him. He couldn't shake the line he'd glimpsed before Ellery snatched the papers back. If something happens to us, may God forgive those who kept us quiet. That afternoon, Mark took Rook for a walk beyond the cemetery fence. The shepherd pulled again, nose catching something at the base of a crooked oak. This time, the soil was looser, freshly disturbed. Mark knelt, brushing dirt with his hands until his fingers struck fabric. Not a chest, not a relic, a sleeve. His pulse hammered as he dug faster. Soon, he revealed an entire arm, bone wrapped in rotted cloth. A rosary dangled from the wrist, beads fractured but still strung. He staggered back, bow rising in his throat. Rook barked sharply, circling the shallow grave. Mark fumbled for his phone, snapped a photo before calling it in. By the time the sheriff arrived with 2 deputies, clouds had gathered again, thick and threatening. Ellery looked down at the body, face pale. Jesus Christ. Mark's voice was steady, cold. One of the missing nuns. Ellery swallowed. Turned to the others. Covered back. Quietly. No report yet. Mark exploded. Are you insane? We can't cover this up. The sheriff grabbed his arm, voice a harsh whisper. You don't understand what's at stake. Mark jerked free. Then make me understand. Because right now it looks like you're burying the truth all over again. Ellery's silence was answer enough. That night, someone knocked at Mark's door. When he opened it, no one stood there. Only a package wrapped in brown paper lay on the step. Inside was a single letter, same handwriting as the ones from the chest. Father Brennan says we must obey, but I can't. There are children here, hidden in the basement. They say it's God's work. But God does not ask for silence like this. If they find this letter, I am already gone. The ink ended in a smear, as if the pen had been yanked from the writer's hand. Mark read it 3 times, each heavier than the last. Children, basement. Rook whined softly, as though sensing the shift in his handler's heartbeat. Mark whispered, What the hell were you hiding, Father? The rectory basement smelled of damp stone and wax. Mark had no warrant, only anger, but the door was unlocked. He carried a flashlight, Rook pacing close. The beam caught shelves stacked with hymnals, boxes of votive candles. Further down, the walls shifted from stone to wood paneling. A section looked newer, less aged than the rest. Rook growled, pawing at it. Mark pressed his hand against the panel. Hollow. He searched for a catch, found none. Finally, he braced his shoulder and shoved. The wood gave way with a groan, swinging inward. Behind it lay a narrow room, lined with rusted bed frames. Small, child-sized. Mattresses were long rotted, but scraps of fabric clung to the springs, dresses, blankets. A doll without a head lay in the corner. Mark's chest constricted. He stepped back, light trembling in his grip. Rook whined again, pawing the threshold, refusing to enter. Footsteps creaked above. Mark killed the flashlight, pressing into shadow. The steps descended slowly, each one deliberate. A lantern's glow spread across the basement. Father Brennan appeared, calm as a man descending into prayer. Deputy, he said softly, lantern steady, you shouldn't be here. Mark's voice was tight. What the hell is this? Brennan's eyes lingered on the hidden room, then on Rook. His sigh was almost mournful. It's what faith demanded, once. What men convinced themselves was holy. That's not an answer. The priest's face hardened. The truth isn't yours to carry. He set the lantern down, blocking the only exit with his frame. Mark's hand hovered near his holster. "Move aside, Father." Brennan's smile was faint, sad. "You think this is about me? No, this is bigger than both of us. You dig further, you'll damn us all." His eyes glistened, not with tears, but with something darker, acceptance. And then he blew out the lantern, plunging the basement into pitch black. Mark's heart pounded. He pulled his gun, Rook snarling beside him. The darkness shifted. Footsteps retreated up the stairs. By the time Mark scrambled out with his flashlight, the rectory was empty. Brennan was gone. But in his gut, Mark knew the priest hadn't run. Not away, at least. No. Brennan had just set something in motion. The following day, the town was electric with whispers. People swore they saw Father Brennan walking into the woods at dawn, robes dragging in the mud. Others said the sheriff was seen burning papers in his backyard barrel. Mark tried to track Brennan, but the trail ended by the river. At home, he found another note taped to his door. "They buried us to protect the children." But the children were never saved. Beneath the words was a drawing, rough and shaky, a church tower with something dark beneath its floorboards. Mark stared until his vision blurred. Then he realized whoever was leaving the notes wasn't just warning him. They were leading him. That evening, Mark drove past the church one more time. The bells rang, though no one pulled the ropes. Rook pressed against the window, ears sharp. Mark muttered, "All right, boy, looks like we're not done digging." The church loomed larger in the dark, less sanctuary now than tombstone. And Mark knew whatever lay beneath its floor was about to rewrite St. Harlow's history in blood and stone. The night air was heavy with pine and damp stone when Mark Teller parked outside St. Harlow's. The church windows glowed faintly from the candles left burning inside, but no service was scheduled. The bells, silent now, seemed to brood. Rook patted at his side, nails clicking against the worn steps as they entered. The sanctuary smelled of wax and mildew, the pews worn smooth by decades of devotion. Mark's flashlight cut across the altar, sweeping lower until it caught faint lines in the floor, seams where the boards had been replaced. The drawing on the note had been right. Something was beneath. He crouched, running a hand along the seams. The wood was newer, pale compared to the surrounding boards. He found the nails had been set hastily, uneven, as though whoever sealed this place had been in a hurry. Rook whined low, circling the altar, nose twitching with restless energy. Mark took out his knife and pried one of the nails free. The board lifted with a groan that echoed like a scream in the cavernous church. Beneath it, blackness, a hollow space. He pulled another board, then another, until the gap revealed a narrow stairway spiraling down. The air that rose from it was thick, damp, and sour. "Stay close, boy," Mark whispered. Together, they descended. The basement stretched wider than he expected. Stone walls, ceiling low, the air suffocating. His flashlight beam landed on rows of wooden cots, identical to the ones in the hidden rectory room. But here they were full. Small skeletons lay on each cot, bones curled, rosaries clasped in tiny hands. Mark staggered back, while clawing at his throat. His flashlight trembled over faces frozen in time, dolls' shoes, hair ribbons still clinging to fragments of cloth. He counted at least a dozen, maybe more. The letters hadn't been exaggeration. Children had lived here. Children had died here. Rook growled suddenly, body rigid. Mark spun the beam. Father Brennan stood at the far end of the chamber. Not alone. Sheriff Ellery was with him. Both men stared back to the beam of light, like figures pulled from confession. "You shouldn't have come here," Brennan said softly. His voice carried, calm and unbroken. This place was sealed for a reason. Mark's voice cracked, sharp with rage. "A dozen children, Father. You sealed them into the ground like trash." "They were sick," Brennan said, stepping closer. His eyes shone wetly. "Abandoned, unwanted. The sisters cared for them, but the diocese forbade it. No papers, no records. When the girls grew desperate, when they begged to take the children away, they disappeared instead." Mark's chest hammered. "You killed them?" Brennan flinched, but Ellery stepped forward, voice rough. "Not him. Not Brennan. My father. He was sheriff then. He knew. He helped keep it quiet. Thought he was protecting the town's faith, protecting its name. And when he died, he broke off, face twisting. Mark stared at him. So you carried it on. You buried the truth, too. Ellery's eyes burned. If I hadn't, this town would have torn itself apart. Every family tied to this church. Every soul who prayed here. You think faith survives if people see this? They'd walk away. And what would be left? Better nothing than this. Mark spat. Rook barked sharply, as if punctuating the thought. For the first time, Brennan's calm cracked. He stepped closer, voice breaking. You think I don't carry it? 30 years of lies. 30 years of blood on my hands that isn't mine, but won't wash away. Catherine and Margaret, they threatened to go to the papers. The diocese silenced them, buried them. And he stopped, chest heaving. Mark's stomach turned. The betrayal hung thick. 2 women of faith, erased to protect an institution. Children, starved and buried to preserve appearances. You had choices, Mark said. His voice was low now, but steady. Every day for 35 years. And you chose silence. Brennan's eyes glistened. And if I speak now, who forgives me? Ellery looked away, jaw tight. Mark raised his flashlight higher, sweeping it over the cots again. Not them. They don't forgive. Not anymore. A sound cracked the silence. Footsteps above. The church door slammed. More steps. More voices. The townsfolk. Word spread faster than any secret could be kept. Within minutes, faces appeared at the stairwell. Janet Rourke among them, clutching a lantern, her mouth falling open at the sight below. Others crowded behind her. Gasps. Cries. A woman sobbed openly, clutching her cross. Mark watched Ellery's face collapse. The secret wasn't buried anymore. Brennan sank to his knees, rosary slipping from his hands. The chamber filled with weeping, anger, disbelief. Later, when the deputies taped off the church and the coroner arrived, Mark sat on the steps outside with Rook pressed against his side. The town swirled in chaos behind him. Shouts, arguments, prayers. But he stared only at the horizon, pale light bleeding into dawn. Janet approached, crouched beside him. They'll never see that church the same way again. They shouldn't, Mark said. His voice was raw. She hesitated. You okay? Mark shook his head slowly. No. But Rook did what he was trained to do. He dug. He found the truth. Janet looked toward the church. And now the rest of us have to live with it. By afternoon, Ellery had resigned. He left town quietly, no badge, no gun, only the weight of his name and his father's sins. Father Brennan stayed. He refused protection, refused transfer. He stood at the altar one last time and confessed aloud, not just to God, but to the people of St. Harlow. His words were simple. Forgive me, for I chose silence. Some wept. Others turned their backs. The church emptied, pews abandoned, candles left to burn out. Weeks later, the bells of St. Harlow were removed. No one wanted to hear them anymore. The church stood hollow, windows boarded, ground fenced. The graves were marked properly now, names etched where they could be traced, unknown where they could not. Mark visited once, Rook padding beside him. The wind moved through the trees with a low, mournful sound. He rested a hand on the shepherd's head. We did what we could, boy. Rook leaned into him, warm, steady. Mark whispered, almost to himself, some truths don't heal. They just stop hiding. He turned back toward town, leaving the silence of the church behind. Final resolution. The people of St. Harlow carried the weight differently. Some clung tighter to their faith. Others walked away forever. Families were torn, friendships strained. But the truth, finally unearthed, no longer belonged to the dark. And though the church bells never rang again, their absence carried its own quiet verdict, one the town could never unhear. For Mark Teller, the memory remained in every patrol, every prayer he couldn't say. But when Rook pressed close on cold nights, steady and alive, it was enough to remind him that sometimes loyalty, even from a dog, could carry a man to the darkest of revelations. And in that silence, The secret stayed buried no longer.